First of all, when I saw this, I thought it was fake. I thought it had to be satire, right? Rings of Power isn't woke enough for some people. Imagine the amount of soy dripping out of this journalist. This dude is clearly, I don't know, 40 or 50 or something like that, and he is actually writing, and it's not satirical, it's not in some funny gesture. He's actually saying that there isn't enough women in the new Amazon Prime TV show Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power.
Are you serious?
Is a strong, independent woman, regardless of story arc or character arc. Every single female in this show can beat the crap out of anybody. We have scenes where Galadriel is taking on 10 or 12 Numenorians at one time, all these warriors who are actually in the process of heading to war, and she can just beat them all like no bother, tapping them on the butt with her sword and everything like that.
Keep moving.
Absolutely farcical. We're going to jump into this story, have a little bit of a deep dive, and actually try understand what's going on inside these people's heads.
That's what everyone did. And then...
Tom Cruise over here?
No, I'll be the first me, not the next Tom Cruise. Thank you very much.
How are they part of such an insane, outlandish cult? It's so bizarre to me. Because if it's not that, then it's something a lot more sinister. Before we jump into it, if you could hit subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. Help the channel out, get the word out there, push the story out to people that mightn't believe that this is actually real and that these are actual journalists who write for actual newspapers. This absolute lunatic starts off berating Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson's multi-award winning, unbelievable, probably one of the best trilogies of all time. He starts off talking about Eowyn and Galadriel and Arwen, how their roles were just little minor roles that didn't really matter, and that's a problem, of course.
What?
So then he moves on and he starts talking about Amazon Prime's new adaptation of Tolkien's literature. It's not that, it's fan fiction. Right off the bat, he starts talking about incels within the fandom. That is a red flag straight away, because that word has no meaning. That's almost like the rhetoric of hate speech. It's arbitrary, doesn't mean anything. It may appear that things have improved with Morfydd Clark, who plays Galadriel, having emerged as the star of the series. I fell off my chair when I read that part. The star of the series, universally despised because of the insane and disgusting portrayal of Galadriel. She pretty much portrayed the character as an angsty teenager that nobody liked, that constantly had a face like a bulldog chewing on a wasp.
You have not seen what I have seen.
And he's talking about she was like the savior of the show or some garbage like that. He dumps a bunch of adjectives in the aftermath of saying this. He says, having created a striking, flawed, obsessive, perennial, fascinating character whose presence helped keep the series afloat during the mid-season sag, when you wondered where on Middle-earth these various plots and subplots were actually going. Galadriel saved us from that? Absolutely not. It was 30 minutes into the first episode and we all knew that there was no saving this abomination. He goes on here and he mentions Eleanor Brandyfoot, the Harefoot Hobbit. Do we need to speak about how abysmal that complete and utter storyline was? And if you removed it, 100% would have made the TV show better.
Why does everyone I love the most always have to go away?
Shh. Bronwyn, the Southland healer turned leader of her people. That storyline was pathetic. We had a village filled with gruff looking men who were extremely angry because they were under the boot and still almost servants to Morgoth. And this chick was some sort of healer that looked after a few animals here and there, and all of a sudden everybody was following her. We had an army of orcs approaching, and we had some chick telling everyone what to do and pointing and calling the shots everywhere. Totally unrealistic. It was like watching an episode of Peaky Blinders set in a time period where women, if they opened their mouth, they would be lucky to keep their teeth. And here we have Bronwyn, the leader of her people. Give me a break. Muriel, Queen Regent of Numenor, and a smattering of other supporting characters. All 4 characters that were mentioned here, Brandyfoot, Galadriel, Bronwyn, and Queen Regent. Take them all out of the show, makes it 10 times better automatically. But here's where he really soils himself with soy. So he goes on to mention how Amazon Prime, in total and utter copium mode, after the announcement that N.B.R, the only decent actor who was playing some random character who wasn't even part of the lore in the first place, was leaving.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Because he recognized that this was a dumpster fire, and like a rat off a sinking ship, he was gone out the door. Then we have the rumors of Charlie Vickers on the way out the door as well. So what are you left with? These strong female leads? Amazon knows the score, so they just blasted out 8 to 12 new characters that were coming. This guy goes on to talk about how there's only 2 women and 8 men or some garbage like that. This article slobbers on for another 3 or 4 paragraphs where he goes on to mention the fact that Galadriel came out of this smelling of roses being an absolute and utter star and the savior of this show. According to this dude, we're in an inclusive time, but not inclusive enough, not for him. And this is the problem with mainstream media shills like this guy and your general cult member. The boundary will always be pushed, they will always want more, and they will keep on coming till all semblance of reality and character and story and lore and tradition is eradicated and replaced with the message. Let me know your thoughts down below. Hit subscribe and appreciate it. Cheers.